skill building happens most often than not when somebody started working, right, or somebody started doing internship. This is something which we have personally gone through and which we have also observed a lot. Right? So I think our thought process was, why should people learn only at work? Right? Why can't there be a place where people can learn something the way they learn at work?
Welcome back to the Exploring Podcast. My name is Teja. I love that you come back every week to learn, to execute, and to exploit, and to clone the thought process that could have a massive impact on the way we think, on the way we act, on the way we communicate and learn with others, right? And you already know that I'm fascinated about finding and introducing the amazing people with incredible brains in technology or business. One other thing that I love about podcasting is that we get a chance to connect with that person that I've been following for a long and apply their initiatives and diving into their personal and professional exploits that help them to become a better version of their ideas, a better version of their visions and goals, and a better version of their thoughts and aligned actions that could create a huge impact. So today's guest is the co-founder of Crio.Do. As you already know, he is Rathinamurthy. Having over a decade of experience in product management, business analysis, and marketing, in 2018, Rathina switched his career from working for corporate to build Crio. Believing in learning by doing into the core, Crio provides specialized learning environments for young developers and engineering students or any computer science aspirants wishing to learn production-level development or product engineering. In 2019, just in a year, Crio has raised over $1 million from Binny Bansal and other investors. Before Crio, Rathina was a senior director of product management at Flipkart, where he was on building high-performance teams and managing product managers with extending hundreds of engineers along. On top of that, the team behind Crio has built an incredible interface between academics and industry that requires indeed in this generation, and I can't wait anymore to start exploring with Rathinamurthy. Thank you so much for joining us, Rathina. I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks, Teja. Thanks for having me here. I'm very excited to talk to your audience and share my insights. Thanks for having me.
So I still remember your message to me on LinkedIn, which made me to evangelize Crio in our campus, which literally helped a lot of students really like on learning the production level development. And they are so glad that you reached out to me. And then I reached out to the most of the people in the college, and they literally got a chance to work on the production level code. And they were working on Crio Summer of Doing. And that's amazing. And thanks for that, Rathina. That was so great.
Thanks, Teja. I think we still are in touch with your campus. I think people like you who take initiatives and actually take any new initiatives to the students is very, very critical for any student community. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that was very great opportunity for us and for me as well, because I was in the initial very first batch of Crio Summer of Doing, where I was on building backend for QEats with Java and MongoDB and all of that. So I really enjoyed the entire learning process, and I have never seen such value coming up. So how do you feel now? Like the Crio has been so much impactful for most of the engineers and also the software developers. So how do you feel now?
Yeah, I think it's always great to see, your work creating real impact for people's life, right? So I think we are like more passionate than ever, right? So, and especially in this current environment where colleges are not running, right? People, even working professionals, have a lot of time in the home, and people thinking about the people are anxious about their career, right? People are thinking about how do they skill up, right? So we feel, I think, even like relevant than ever, right? And like I think we are continuing to push the boundaries on providing work-like opportunities for more and more developers, right? So not only students, working professionals, right? So we're expanding the horizon. We're actually providing a lot more opportunities, right? So it's actually pretty exciting. And like now that we are 2 years into the journey, right? So we already started seeing our students, the Crio tribe is getting built, right? So we have people who started us pretty early on, gone ahead and actually achieved great things in their career, right? So they come back and they share their views with their users, right? So Crio tribe is actually is becoming more and more powerful day by day, right? So that's a pretty good thing, and we believe that's very important for any community, right? So we are glad that our alumni is coming back and helping our users. Yeah.
Yeah. Super. That's so cool to listen actually. Even alumni are coming back and sharing their things and they are helping the others. So that's the best thing that ever could happen in a company, right? In edutech. That's amazing and that's way to go in the future as well. So, but I never asked you this question, like, what is the reason behind naming Cryo and what does it really mean? I personally don't know about it. Like, what is Cryo and what does it really mean?
Yeah, cryo literally means create, right? So I think if you pronounce it cryo, it's Portuguese pronunciation. If you pronounce it Crio, it's a Sanskrit pronunciation, right? So
Yeah.
cryo means creation, right? And I think .do indicates the learn by doing, right? So that's what we fundamentally believe in, right? So yeah, it's an experiential learning platform. Like talking about the motivation behind cryo. I think like many other edutech founders, right? We are really passionate about helping people to learn better, right? And at least from the background we come from, right? And we attribute all of our success to the mentors we had, right? And the quality of education we had at work, at universities, right? So we really feel good quality learning can actually transform people's life, right? So when we are actually thinking about doing something on our own, right? After spending 6-7 years at Flipkart, right, being part of the growth journey, right? So that really, at least personally, motivated me to think about my own entrepreneurial journey and inspiration to create something meaningful and large and impactful, right? When you think about what should we do, right? So something in education was definitely top of my mind, right? I think that's when my co-founder Sridhar, he also came back to India from US. We had multiple conversations. This is an area where both of us are passionate about, right? So, and we believe tech is going to transform the world, right? And but engineers are going to be the driving force behind that, right? So we believe nurturing engineering talent, nurturing development talent is going to be key input to this transformation, right? So yeah, we wanted to do our bit towards that goal.
Yeah. So when did Cryo born? Is that during the Flipkart days, or is that after coming out of the Flipkart days?
No, actually, I left Flipkart in early 2018, right, and then we took 3-4 months break. We actually started in May 2018.
So it's after you came out of Flipkart and you got an idea about into the Cryo and you jumped in right there.
We wanted to do broadly something in technology learning, right? We are not very sure what exactly we want to do, right? And my role at Flipkart was pretty hectic, right? A lot of responsibilities, right? So I really could not take out time to work on my any side projects, right? So I had to quit even to get some time to think about anything else, right? So when I wanted to do something on my own, it was natural for me to think about how do I logically transition out, then take some time out and think about what exactly I need to do.
Yeah, so when you are being into Flipkart, like for years, it's more than like 5 years you're being there. So possibly like it's all into the e-commerce, right? But when you came out, it's very rare to people to see that they transformed their career into another completely different career, because you have a huge shift from e-commerce background to an edutech, right? So what it really made you to actually choose a edutech startup when you came out of Flipkart?
I think, it's not like, for example, I knew e-commerce when I started in Flipkart, right? So I think fundamentally what Flipkart taught to us is not just e-commerce, right? It's about how do you think about solving a problem, right? How do you think about building a product, right? How do you think about meeting customer needs, right?
Yeah.
I think those things fundamentally are not very different, right? Irrespective of whatever problem you solve, right? But when it comes to what problem you want to solve, you have to really choose the one which you're really passionate about, right? Which you can actually start thinking about and start solving for not just 1 year, 2 year, right? Like for multiple years, right? So I think I felt really passionate about tech learning, right? I think I thought it's worth spending my time on it, right? So, but I think definitely the experience we get in Flipkart in terms of problem solving or building a product or thinking about how to take it to market, right? So those learnings are still relevant, right? So it's not just e-commerce, right?
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, that is a way that usually thinking would differ matter, right? So possibly, I mean, the Crio journey would definitely help a lot of people out there who is listening to this. If they are starting a edutech startup, it will definitely help them. So I want to know, like, what are those first steps that you have taken when that Crio was initially an idea, right? We start from ideation, right? So you have that Crio in your brain, like an idea. So what are the steps that you have taken to take it forward?
Yeah, I think so. And we had an intuition, and even now we feel the way the learning and education is happening around technology is kind of broken, right? But that's very broad, right? You can't say it's broken, and like, so there are so many people are trying to solve for it, right? So you have to start somewhere small, and then you need to have what is the insight you have for you to believe that you can actually solve it differently. Right? It's not like a new problem which no one is thinking to solve, right? So when we started, at least the insight we had, even now, what we believe in is, even though there is a lot of resources, right? When we were studying, it was books and library, right? And probably in 2010 onwards, a lot of videos, a lot of resources are available, right? It's not a lack of resources, right? Which leads to why people are not learning, right? So if we felt there's a lot of resources available for people to learn and actually gather the knowledge, but when it comes to for somebody to have a real skill, right? And it's a real skill and ability to apply and build something, right? And people lack a lot, right? So that skill building happens most often than not when somebody started working, right? Or somebody started doing internship, right? This is something which we have personally gone through and which we have also observed a lot, right? So I think our thought process was, why should people learn only at work, right? Why can't there be a place where people can learn something the way they learn at work?
Exactly.
Right. So I think our fundamental product thesis is about that, right? So why can't we have a platform where people get work-like experiences and they can get something learned practically, right? That was the starting point, right? And then we started thinking about where is the need for it, right? Who would actually take it? I think that's kind of how the journey started. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's actually like the deep purpose behind Cryos, right? So everything you do, like a huge initiative like Cryo is going to be having a deep intention to actually have a lot of change in the developers or students or any computer science enthusiasts coming up, right? So that is a deep purpose, and that's great, amazingly. Like, but what about this? Like when we have like an edutech startup, right? Thinking in that shoes. So like, what are the steps that you have taken to take it forward, like from ideation, and now it's a huge company, right?
Yeah.
So what are the first steps that you have taken in the initial phases? So what are they? Like, did you reach any investors and tried about that, or did you got any chance to work with any other else to make it forward? Like, how did it happen?
Yeah, the initial 4-5 months or so, we were a small team of 3 people, right, trying to build something and test it out in the market, right? So we had some hypothesis around who can use it, right? And we actually didn't build a large team because we didn't have a complete conviction about what we are talking about, right? So we did a small POC. We started testing it out in the market, right? Once we started gaining some conviction about what we are talking about makes sense, people actually like it, people actually need it, then we started thinking about raising money, building the team, and those things followed, right? So yeah, it started as a smaller experiments, a POC product, right? Trying to get the feedback and iterating it pretty faster, right? I mean that's how the initial steps were. And once we had more conviction about what we want to build, right, and why we believe it will work, right, then we actually raised our initial round of funding and we started building the team, right. Then actually we started investing in building the product, right, foundations in the product, right. So post that we started figuring out multiple other go-to-market initiatives, right. I think that's when we have done Crio Summer Up doing to reach out to larger student base, right. We wanted to try out how it works, everything online.
Yeah.
Right. What are the interesting student level? What are the skill levels they have? Right. Yeah, I think that's how the direct to developer offering started emerging.
Technology is transforming every industry, and quality developers are going to be the driving force behind that change. Existing ways of learning through video-based and traditional universities are not making the cut. Crio believes developers need and deserve better ways to learn and shape the new world. Crio is changing the way techies learn through work-alike micro experiences with real world problems curated from industry. Try free micro experiences at Crio.Do and get free perks at exploit.chat/Crio. That's exploit.chat/Crio. Cool. Okay. So when you mentioned that about like in the initial phases, you tried some experiments to actually validate whether the ideation would work or not, right? So you tried a few sort of experiments, right? So what are they like? What are those experiments that you have done, and you came to a conclusion that cryo will be standing ahead? So what are those such an experiment? Like when I say experiments, it may be like a survey, it may be like something else. So anything about that? Can you speak more about like such experiments that actually gave you the validation that cryo could stand out?
I think we ourselves are techies. We come from tech ecosystem, right? So we have reached out to a bunch of friends who are hiring managers, who are actually hiring a lot of freshers. We kind of spend a lot of time with them, understanding their expectations and versus what's happening on the ground, right? So one thing we observed was people spend time even after hiring from top institutes, training, right, and actually onboarding, spending a lot of time in training people, right? So we thought that might be a good opportunity for us to test it out, right? So we reached out to a few companies. We told them we could help you guys with the onboarding the people you already hired. Right? That was the first offering we had, right? So we put together a curriculum. We put together a very MVP kind of a product, right, where we could actually do it, right? So that actually kind of gave us a lot of validation, because it's not just you're taking to students, right? So you're taking to corporates where they critique your product, they critique your approach, curriculum, right? So it was a pretty good validation cycle for us to get their inputs in terms of what they expect, right? What exactly they do. That's pretty much the gap they're fulfilling, right? What's supposed to happen in the universities, right? So kind of that was a good experiment for us to understand the expectations companies had, right? And we could also validate the fact that they're willing to pay for that, right? They're willing to pay for it, and they need that, right? Whatever the learning programs we have conceptualized, they had a real need for it, right? So which kind of gave us more confidence. What we are doing is not completely out of nowhere, right? Companies really need it. If companies really need it, why can't somebody do it on their own before even coming to this company, right? So I think that's how the experiments went.
Cool. And also like usually like when we try doing something, it's very usual that we make a lot of mistakes, right? And later we realize that was the thing that I have shouldn't done, right? And then we realize and we learn from that, and we try not to make the next time to repeat it, right? So that is how we usually work. Like that's how we think, that's how we try something and we make mistake and we learn and we grow, right? So how about cryo then? So during that initial phases, what do you feel still now that okay, that was a mistake that I have done, and what are your learnings from that?
Yeah, I think we are in the pretty early stage of our journey, right? So even today we make a lot of mistakes, right? So I think we really believe that's okay. I think we kind of understood like as long as you learn from your mistakes, it is okay, right? So it's not something very specific, right? So even today we are in a pretty early stage. We are still figuring out the right target segments, right? Figuring out the right offering, right? So we keep iterating the things we do, right? So I think mistakes and learning from that is actually part and parcel of like every day, every week thing for us, right? It's not something which is like a very exception.
Yeah, I totally get that. And also, I mean, it's been so far you're building communities and also building teams and managing them. What would be your words of advice for someone getting into edutech startups? So what would you say for them?
I think edutech startups, right, for them, I think it's a huge opportunity, right? So especially, I think the online adoption, right? People have been forced to do it with COVID, right? So you don't need to convince anyone about online anymore, right? As long as you have a valid content and an engaging way of delivering it, right? And it solves for the user's real need, right? There's so much opportunity, right? Right from like people are like right from learning chess to right from learning guitar. It's not just need not be always serious stuff, right? So I think it's a huge opportunity there, right? And I think a lot of companies are doing a great job, right? I think the way we think about it is as long as you have something meaningful to offer, and then you have an engaging way to deliver it, right? There is a market for everyone, right? So just keep focusing about what problems you're trying to solve. how can you solve it better than everyone else, right? That's kind of how we think about it.
Yeah, cool. And also, like, I mean, when we look into the Cryo's core belief of learning by doing, right? So possibly, like, what would you say? Like, is that what colleges are lacking?
Yeah, see, I think not just colleges, right? For example, generally, if you think about learning, especially something like technology, right? This has to be fundamentally, it's a craftsmanship, right? You have to, end of the day, you're learning to build something, right? So
Yeah.
from a pedagogy perspective, more experiential, more applied pedagogy actually makes a lot more sense, right? So the way you teach, I don't know, probably literature, or the way you teach economics and the way you teach computer science, right, need not be the same, right? Especially even in the engineering, right? So, for example, computer science has evolved so much digitally, right? You can actually spin off a machine in a second and actually create any environment for someone to show something, right?
Yeah.
I think the technology has actually enabled us so much, right? But I think we believe the pedagogy and the way we learn and teach has not been reimagined, right? So, especially for the engineering technology world, and we fundamentally believe learn by doing is the methodology people should be thinking about, right? It actually really creates not just knowledge, right? It creates a real skill, real competency. If you create people who could actually go ahead and actually apply it and create new things, right? So, I think colleges are to a certain extent trying to do that by pushing people for internships and trying to bring in some labs. But there's a long way to go.
Yeah. So what about this? Like, if you get a chance to speak to the education council, so what would you speak to them? What would you actually say to them to make some changes? What are their changes would look like?
Yeah, I think so. So there are only certain things which can be done at a policy level, right? For example, I think the entrepreneurs like us, right, and actually should create the viable solutions, right? I think which I think the government and society are more and more open nowadays, right? So so they want people to go to internships. So they're saying they're mandating go and do internships. There are not enough internships. What will people do, right? So the intentions are right? I think how are we executing it across all legs, right? What are we doing at institutions? What are we doing at a student level, right? What is industry expecting, right? I think there should be a better way to actually bring all these things together.
Yeah.
Right. I think intentions are right everywhere, right? Even the government feels people should have a lot more experiential skills. People should be doing more internships, right? But I think the way it's getting executed across the funnel is not tied together today, right? So that's something which I think all of us should try contributing and improving that, right? At least the way if I think about it today, the way technology is taught, right, has to fundamentally undergo a change, right? It has to be a lot more practical, right? And people should have, I think even the internships, right, should be seen in a very different light, right? It's not like from 50 years back, right? So today, there are so many freelancing platforms. If you're a student, right, if you really want to do some industry quality work, right, you can actually take up a project if you're really skilled. Right. So I think the ecosystem is evolving, right? I think the way we imagine education, the way we imagine industry experience, internships, right? All those things has to evolve, right?
Yeah.
That's my high level thought.
Yeah, cool. I mean, those things are actually need to be realized on the both ends as well. What I feel is that, moreover to the education as well, but also it mostly depends on a student's mindset, right? So if that person is actually getting into a lot of exposure and trying out to apply for internships, so that will be so much helpful for him. Specifically, not caring about colleges things, not caring about what syllabus teaches them, right? So I mean, that's great. That's beautifully said. And how about this? Like in Cryo, like there should be some sort of principles, right? When we in the edutech thing. So before you launch any program or any initiative or any kind of a product, let's suppose Cryo has Cryo launch, Cryo dev sprints, and many other, right? So before Cryo launches any sort of such initiatives, what are the principles that needs to be followed first?
I understand, right? So I think for us, the learner is the core of everything what we do, right? So
Cool.
and we think about learning outcomes very very deeply, right? And we also think learning outcomes will not just come just because you just stuff the content,
Yeah.
right? And we also give a lot of importance to think about how engagingly the content will get delivered, right? Uh, we actually bring in at a high level. I think learning outcomes and how engagingly we can deliver learning outcome is the two key things we try to keep in mind whenever whatever we do, right? Uh, but at a detailed level,
Yeah.
When you think about content, when you think about delivery, when you think about product, I think we leverage a lot of game mechanics and psychology, right? So think about how do we give frequent feedback to the users, right? So how do we give the first success to the user, right? So there's a lot of thinking goes behind in crafting the journey for the user.
So that being said, like when we have a Crio in the phase, like it's growing really good way and it's reaching to the most who are in need, right? So what do you think those things, these are the reason why we are having a new learner every day having a satisfactory thing, right? So what do you think that core reasons behind having such satisfactory and having a new learner every single day?
Fundamentally, the learning outcomes are at the core of it, right? So, and actually, when a new learner come to us, right? So generally, when they come initially, they don't even realize how different it is, right? Or how effective it is, right? So when they actually start going through it, after they start seeing the first success, after they start seeing the work really working, right? Their enthusiasm and their energy actually doubles, right? And they put so much effort, right? And, and almost I think all our learners, right? Actually, they're all pretty. Almost all of them actually are pretty happy users. They just go out and talk about it with their friends and their family, right? That's one of the key factor for us for our growth, right? So I think the learning outcomes and the user satisfaction is at the core of what we do, right? And because what we're doing is refreshingly new and which a lot of people are waiting for all this while, right? So we have pretty happy customers who a lot of times say, "Oh man, I was waiting for this all this while. Where were you guys?" Right? So those are those are little words we get from customers. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And also, you mean in the initial things, like when a new learner comes into you and they have an amazing experience, it lasts for a really good time. But when we take it to a little longer, the energy goes down, right? So maybe it's because maybe multiple reasons, because maybe some external factors, maybe some ago because his internal issues, some anything would happen, right? So the engaging would be getting slowed down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that? Like how do you keep your audience or your learners engaging and keeping with up yourself to try out new stuff coming from Crio?
So one, I think one is actually engagement within the same program, right? Some of our programs are actually 4 months long, right? So
yeah,
we understand there are a lot of working professionals, right? So who may not have time every day to put on, right? So we provide a lot of flexible options. For example, they can spend time only in the weekend, right? We actually help them to personalize their plan, right? And whatever plan they make, we actually help showing them the mirror, right? And make them accountable for the plan, right? So I think some kind of an accountability and some kind of planning and tracking against that actually brings a lot of users back, right? And, and once they start learning, actually it becomes very, very close community, right? There are meme bars, right? People helping each other, right? It's really engaging community, not just and people having fun, right? So one, I think having a realistic plan and helping them to just see that in the mirror every day, right? How they're progressing against the plan they make, and making the community engaging among themselves, right? Are the two things that are kind of working for us, right? But I think still engagement is generally a problem in any longer learning programs.
Yeah.
Right? And we are trying to find every day newer ways to improve that. Yeah.
Cool. What about this? Like, even in the current like 2020, is that good to go with a competitive kind of a startups, or is that go with a different ideas or creative way of catching up the things? I mean, what I mean is that when I say like, it's like a red ocean, right? When we have companies already like Amazon, starting up a new e-commerce will be so tough, will be so hard to actually compete with them. But starting up another initiative which would be so different, so creative, and also creating a lot of impact will be so different, right? So how about that? Like, is that in 2020, which works the best?
Actually, there is no single answer, right? So
Yeah.
even in India, for example, like people are thought e-commerce is done, right? There's an Amazon, there's a Flipkart, there's nothing much to do, and there are a lot of companies like Meesho and a lot of social commerce companies are coming up, right? So I think especially in markets like India, nothing is done, right? E-commerce is only 2%, right? I think online education probably is like 1%, right? So I think like there is a huge opportunity. There is a huge room for growth in everything what we do, right? I don't think there is any sector is kind of done, right?
Yeah.
I really don't think that should be a consideration, right? As long as you understand something very deeply, you know there is a problem and you believe you can solve it, right? I think there's enough opportunity for you to make an impact in every field, I would say.
Yeah, totally. And also, I have this question, like very much like what happens is there are when you see into engineering, like a student mindset, there will be two kind of people, like whether they work core into data structures and into the competitive programming, and they try to solve the problems into various things, and they come up and they attempt into competitive programming and they win. Right? When I say win, it may be they get into the industry and they get a job. And the other perspective is that they don't do much into competitive programming into data structures, but they work much into real time. They work much into development and doing in real time and putting into the use cases, right? I mean, I think you have noticed such kind of people around.
Yeah.
So, what would be your suggestion for students? Whether to go with working with competitive programming and data structures and all of that, or is that go with learning by doing the real things which could help others, seeing the work coming up in real, like a website building or an application development or a backend system or anything? So, what would be your choice for them?
I don't think it's mutually exclusive, right? For example, when you say data structures or algorithms, right? Those are all like very basic programming foundations, and every engineer should have, right?
Yeah.
But I think your job doesn't end by just keep practicing that to clear interviews or clear the initial tests. Right? Once you actually gain the required foundations in data structures and programming, right? How do you put into practice, right? What do you do with that, right? I think that's where choosing the right projects, improving your development skills all comes into picture, right? I don't think it's mutually exclusive, right? I think someone should be doing both of it, right? But competitive programming is slightly different, right? I think I think that's mostly if you're passionate about it, you'll do it. But if you generally look at it from the perspective of building a career, you need to have a solid programming foundations. You need to have good foundations, data structures, right? Then you also need to hone your development skills.
Yeah. Super. Yeah, that comes to the end. And if you feel like sharing something to the listeners, yeah, please feel free to.
Yeah, I think probably for all the developers out there, right? I think my advice is, one, I think all of us have a lot of time in hand currently, right? And we just need to think about what we have control on, what we don't have control on, right? There's no point in thinking about, my college is not opening up, like, I don't know, your recruitment is slow down, right? It's happening for everyone, not just for us, right? So
yeah.
I think my piece of advice would be just focus on what you have control on, right? Figure out a way how you can actually improve your skills, right? Leverage the time available at hand, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to skilling, at least our fundamental belief is you should actually think about doing a lot of projects, right? And learn things by doing, right? That'll help you a long way, right? So figure out optimal ways to learn. Keep focusing on learning, right? I think things will change, right? Market will open up, right? But I think just focus on what you have control on, right? I think that's my.
Definitely, that should definitely help the most out there who are the students and into the colleges. And complaining is also not the way. Like as you mentioned, like complaining is not always the way, but we have to be in the way that we could explore and learn more in the time that we could take benefit from. Right? Totally. Thank you so much, Rathina. It means so much to me and to the listeners, and that would definitely help them to grow. That would definitely help them to learn as well. So possibly, thank you so much, and I'm so happy that you are here and sharing your thoughts about your personal and professional life, including your Crio's journey, and also about as a startup things, what others could take about it in the edutech, and also what the student takeaways as well. So comprising all of that, it should be really helpful for them. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Teja. Yeah, thank you.
Technology is transforming every industry, and quality developers are going to be the driving force behind that change. Existing ways of learning through video-based and traditional universities are not making the cut. Crio believes developers need and deserve better ways to learn and shape the new world. Crio is changing the way tech is learned through work-alike micro-experiences with real-world problems curated from industry. Try free micro-experiences at Crio.Do and get free perks at exploit.chat/Crio. That's exploit.chat/Crio.